Okay guys, trust me, I get it. Like me, you've probably scoured the internet, Reddit threads, looking for a simple answer to a simple question, which is, what is the actual difference between locking tuners and a locking nut on an electric guitar? I'm sure you found a million conflicting things from basement guitar trolls on the internet, so in this video, I'm gonna clear up the actual differences between locking tuners and locking nuts, and guess what? It's gonna ruffle some feathers. Let's go. Welcome back to The Axe, your one-stop shop for tremolo tips and tricks and electric guitar knowledge. So I had to make this video because there's so much BS on the internet about locking tuners and locking nuts. They do the same thing, they don't do the same thing. What is it? It's kind of like when something's wrong with you and you go on the internet to like WebMD or Dr. Google, and what you just wanted to find out about your little stomach ache becomes this whole big thing, and you feel like you know less than when you started. So the big question the internet is butchering: do locking tuners serve the same purpose as a locking nut? First, we got to start with the intricacies of locking tuners on a guitar. I'm going to be using my Harley Benton Aeolus that's missing a string, but that's good because we're going to restring it to show you what locking tuners do. So locking tuners are a pretty cool feature that a lot of manufacturers are actually installing on their stock guitars nowadays. The most common variation is what you see here. It's got all the gears on the inside, just like a regular tuning machine, but also it has this rotating button on the back which holds all the magic. This button controls a very, very small pin that's within the tuning peg itself, and up and down depending on which way you rotate the button. You can see this pin or retainer in the actual eyelet of the tuning peg. Now, why locking tuners are an improvement over standard tuners is that standard tuners only hold the string in place by pure friction and rotation and can cause string slippage over time. As opposed to a guitar with locking tuners, when you string it up and put a string through the eyelet, it clamps down and then you tune it, which gives you technically and theoretically more tuning stability. Have you ever been playing or bending and then you hear a pop or a ding at the headstock and maybe some of the strings are out of tune? Yeah, that's actually string slippage at the tuner that you get with standard tuners. Okay, now that we've had a little walkthrough of the tuners, the locking tuners, let's go through locking nuts, and this is where it gets interesting. I'm going to use Old Faithful, my Ibanez Genesis RG550, to demonstrate the locking nut portion of this video. By the way, I just want to take a quick break because I just want to thank you for stopping by and watching this video. If you like the content, consider subscribing below so you don't miss any videos like this. Alright, locking nuts are usually a part of a floating tremolo system that offers incredible tuning stability for things like dive bombs, squeals, or just general use of the whammy bar. Now, locking nuts usually use several plates that are depressed onto the strings that perform a locking motion with hex screws on the top after the guitar is tuned. This theoretically means that there's really no string movement after the nut once it's locked down around this area, and then the tremolo should return to pitch and it's level because everything's locked down and it's a closed system. Okay, knowing what we know now, let's make the answer to this question ridiculously simple. Do locking tuners serve the same purpose as locking nuts? Okay, and bear with me real quick. We need to establish when the guitar was tuned and when the strings were locked in the setup process. So with a locking nut, you make sure your guitar is tuned, tremolo is level, and then you lock the strings down. So theoretically, and the whole point behind a Floyd Rose or floating trem design is that you've locked the trem at the level you want and the tuning you want forever. That's why double locking tremolos exist, to provide incredible tuning stability so you can absolutely abuse this guitar. Now let's look at locking tuners. Now this process is almost reverse of locking nuts. When you're stringing your guitar up, you put the strings through the eyelets of the tuners, clamp it or lock it down, then tune your guitar. You're locking the string before you tune it. So the actual tuning machine and the gears inside are what's keeping the string in place while you're playing, and that isn't a closed lockdown system. Long story short, with locking tuners, you're not locking a specific tuning into place like you would with a locking nut. This means that when you're in tune and you're jamming along, no matter how good your tuners are, they're still going to move a little bit. The gears are going to shift a small amount, and that could lead to tuning instability because nothing's locked in aside from the string onto the tuner. Now don't get me wrong, locking tuners are phenomenal for string changes, and they provide that like slippage protection for guitars that don't have a locking nut, and guitars that are like a fixed bridge. It's a great option. But no, locking tuners do not serve the same purpose as locking nuts, and that's just the bottom line, folks. Now, I actually want to hear from you guys. What's your take on this? Do you own locking tuners or a locking trem system? Let us know in the comments, my friends. All right, guys, that's the end of the video. I hope this helps. I'll see you next time on the Solved Guitar series, and until then, keep shredding.